Okay, it is 2:02 Pacific time. We'll go ahead and get started because this is a live session and we do want to make sure we leave plenty of time for discussion and questions. So I'm going to kick us off and get a few intro slides out of the way for us before we go over to ClickUp. Come on. There we go. So this particular session today is a live session for Nicole, our project management extraordinaire, to help show us around ClickUp, which is one of the many project management platforms out there. Nicole and I did a webinar last month, which you can go and check out, that covers the more foundational principles of project management. It's a nice little intro video. If you have not seen it yet, that's fine. You can still hang out here. You'll still pick up what it's like to work in ClickUp. But just know that there's another video if you have like, what do they mean by waterfall or agile? That's a great webinar to go check that out. So just know that that is there. And Christy will pop a link in the chat for us and help us out along the way as well. Anytime we mention some resources, if she has the link for it, she'll put it in the chat for you. So getting into it, in case I am new to you, I am Rachel Woody, and I'm a business owner, author, speaker, educator, advocator, and consultant. And I specialize in working with emerging collection programs, whether that is archives or museums. I've been in the field for more than 15 years and have had extensive and very enjoyable experiences working with all levels of organizations, staff, volunteers, and interns. And joining us today is Nicole Nolan. She's a PMP, which is a project management professional. She has more than a decade of experience in projects and program management, and that is with both waterfall and agile. And she's had a very exciting and enjoyable career thus far across various industries, which she describes as looks like a candy land with multitasking as a personal superpower. She has self-described herself as overcommitted, but I would say very invested volunteer who cares and is very giving of her time for service dogs, bunnies, cultural committees, gaming, and her alma mater, Pacific University, and is definitely considered a fashion icon by many in her inner circle for her extensive vintage and nerdy wardrobe. And I would just like to point out that you cannot see Nicole's full outfit today, but it is a Pixar style dress. And most recently, Nicole is a kidney donor. She's a living donor and donated her kidney just a few months ago, and is very much a superhuman person. And I'm so excited to have her back with us again today. So thank you very much, Nicole, for joining us.
I'm excited to be back.
All right, and a few other housekeeping items. So unlike our usual premiere pre-recorded with discussion in the chat type webinars, this is a live webinar, and so we have Otter AI should be providing a transcript, but if not, of course, we will have the closed caption and transcript afterwards for you. After this recording session is done, we will put it up on YouTube. We'll try to do that within 24 hours, but it may be a little longer than that given the live session. Anyway, you'll get the link to the recording and anything else we talk about today. And as this is a little bit different from our YouTube premiere, do note that we have, it's mirrored on this side, the question and answer box. We're in Zoom webinar, which means that not only do we have chat, we actually have a Q&A box to specifically put your questions in, and it's much easier to navigate from a panelist perspective. So for those of you joining us today, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box. And then a disclaimer, obviously every organization is different. Strategies will vary in terms of application. And also, while we are talking about ClickUp today, None of us are officially affiliated with ClickUp. None of us are receiving any compensation of any manner from ClickUp. It just happens to be the specific product that Nicole has helped my company find and implement. And so that's why we're sharing it today. And then for today's agenda, I'm going to hand it over to Nicole in just a moment. She's going to share the project sheet. I'll walk us through what that project sheet is, a little bit of an orientation to that. And then Nicole's going to show us how we use that project sheet and translate it into a project management platform that is ClickUp for today, and also give us a bit of an orientation to the ClickUp interface in general and just help give you a sense of the tools available and some of her from a project manager professional perspective. What are some of the things that you should familiarize yourself with and use right away? And then we do hope to have a good amount of time for Q&A afterwards. If you do have for Q&A any like quick clarification questions, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A immediately. Otherwise, if there are any sort of like substantial questions, longer questions, or if we may answer it later on in the webinar, we may hold those for the end. All right, so I believe those were all. Yep, just a connect and Q&A slide for the end. So Nicole, I'm going to stop share and let you share.
All right. Let's take a look at this project plan.
Okay, so to give you a bit of an orientation for those joining us, for our projects, because they are long projects and you should be doing this too for in your museum or archives, having an idea of what it takes to get to your end goal. So for this top section of the page here, you see that there's that project timeline. So for this specific fake project example, I have us going from September through to the August. We have the team listed as well as what each of the phases are identified as. We then have that lovely various gray versions of a chart in terms of when we intend for each of those phases to happen throughout the year. And of course, sometimes there's overlap and things happening concurrently. Sometimes there's not. It just goes one to the other. And then further down below, as Nicole is indicating, we've broken those phases up into much more specific. Here is the parent activity. So first of all, we need to identify what it is that we want to digitize and put online. And then we break it down into some tasks. And while these tasks certainly will then have perhaps individual steps in further detail, these are at least that initial, here's my project framework, here's the year I know I need to do it in, here's the different phases and roughly how long their durations will be, and then breaking these out into tasks, who's assigned, how many hours we may estimate for those tasks, and when is the due date. And for some of our projects where there may not be a hard due date, it is important to still use a soft due date just to help keep your project going. So just know that having that, even if it's made up, is still very helpful. And then I have listed an attachment for some of these items, especially for digitization projects. Having instructional text with screenshots, paperwork can be helpful. Maybe there's a best practices template. So ClickUp, one of the things I love about it is that you can actually attach some specific documents to the tasks. And then Nicole has shown further down, we have the rest of the phases. Due to our short time together, we're only going to break out like the first main phase together. But for the rest of this document, for your knowledge and context, each of these sections would then be further broken out, just like we've done for the phase one. So that is the rough and quick orientation to how we typically break out our projects. And you'll see some of those elements as Nicole walks us through. She'll be pulling those over and showing you where they go into ClickUp. So with that, I will hand it over to Nicole.
All right. So when you look at a project plan like this, what you're essentially looking at is an outline. You remember back in high school when they would make you write outline after outline after outline. And you'd be like, I just want to write my essay. Okay, well, you've got to start with your key points and your key purposes. And when you do a proposal for a grant or a proposal for a scope of work, you start with, here's all the things that we know are needed, and then you flesh out from there. And that eventually will turn into a beautiful long document with lots of text and lots of detail. And it will absolutely knock the socks off of your client or your board or whoever it is that you're trying to impress with this. We've got the bare bone version of that. This is the outlined version. So this might be where you had started, and then you will flesh it out into being this gorgeous proposal. And from that gorgeous proposal, you're eventually going to take this distilled information out of that to create your project on the digital side of things. We've just streamlined a little bit for today. So in ClickUp, what you will start with is you'll end up with kind of this everything thing, which will show everything that you've got for your organization. And you're going to create a space, which we've already done here, but you have just a little button that says new space, and it gives you the options to create a section within your digital world, essentially. And you can customize it and make it super cute if you want to. You can determine if it's just a personal space. So if you need a place to do your work for yourself, then you can always do this for your own activities as well, but sharing with your team. And you're able to add the statuses that things progress through. So like in our case, we like to do in progress, under review, and done. You can also add things like blocked. All of that can be on here, and you can add it to your board, what it means to be closed. And for the most part, we just kind of stick with this, the default, but there are a lot of different versions depending on how deeply you want to dive. But this custom one where we just do our statuses works great. Now we've already completed this. And so we created this digitization project folder. And the folder is going to be what holds all of the elements of this project virtually. And depending on the size of the projects that you do or the repeatability of the projects that you do, let's say you're in an organization like Rachel, where you have clients and you may do multiple projects for the same client. So in that case, your folder would actually be, say, your client's name, because then you would create, here you see digitization project, and you can create everything for that client underneath that one section. But if you needed more, you could create an entire other list and have list 2 in this case that would show, and you could have, maybe this was phase 2 of your digitization projects, and you can even copy it over from the previous one so that you have all the same structure and status and everything that worked from you for before. So you can absolutely grow and keep things together so you can refer back to previous projects and previous structures. We're going to start with this first one because this is the one that we were working on. And if you notice, I'm clicking between the two on the left, list that was created and list 2 that we created. If I was to click on the folder itself, it shows me both. So you can also have multiple projects running for the same client and see them at a glance in that one space if you want to. You can also look at them in that view that I was talking about where it says what's in progress. So to do, in progress, in review, and complete, all of that will show up here as well, which we'll look at in a minute once we've got some things on the board. In terms of a structure for what you're going to build on a board like this, we're taking your outline and putting everything necessary onto this board. We're putting those digital Post-it notes that I mentioned in the previous one into place. On this view, it's going to look like you just made yourself a task list. But once we look at the board view, you're going to see what I mean about Post-its, because you can see these tickets or tasks that move through the process and where they would fall, as if you had built a board in front of you and went, I'm posting this here, this is here, and this is here. So we're going to create all of that based off of that outline. And we're going to be able to assign due dates. We're going to be able to track time. We're going to be able to attach documents, and we're going to be able to assign subtasks as well. So everything can happen in this field. And the base version of ClickUp with unlimited users is free. So there isn't a cost for you to play with this. If you want to try this out, it is absolutely something that you can play around with and then pitch. It's advanced reporting and things like that that you start to have to pay for. And even then, it's actually a very affordable option within the project management space in terms of an online system like this for what it offers. There'll be a pricing link that we can share with you later if you have specific questions about pricing, because as I'm not a ClickUp rep, I cannot speak specifically to their numbers. So let's take a look at this project plan again, and we're going to look at how we broke this down. So this is where we're going to start with. So this parent activity number 1, identify. This is our first task here. So we're going to come over here to this list that we're working on, and we're going to create a task, and it's already set up for you to just start right here on the screen that says identify. And, oh, you know, I need to assign it to someone because it gives you a list of everyone. And this one needs to go to, well, this one's the parent. So I don't actually have to assign it to anyone unless someone's going to be responsible for all of the subtask works. We're going to go ahead and assign it to Maya because she's got the majority of the work for the subtasks. So we're going to assign this to Maya. We didn't set a priority for this, but it is due very soon. So you can set a due date and a priority here. Priorities have defaults, urgent, high, normal, or low. There is reporting you can do that will show you how many you have in each of those things. So then you could focus everyone you needed to on something urgent. And the setting the due date is very easy because you just pick it off of a calendar. So we're going to start with this basic parent here. And now that I've saved it, it gives us some other options. Easy things like rename. You can add tags to it. So let's say you did multiple digitization projects across different clients, and you wanted to be able to find certain kinds of things, no matter what client it was for. Let's say you had used a specific technology or a new technology across clients. You can add these tags to make things searchable so that you could pull everything related to that topic. But where we're going to go, since we're building our project structures, we're going to go to subtasks. So that's this little guy right here. And this allows me to, you can pretty much continue to endlessly do this down just from this screen if you're trying to just in a hurry add things. So we're going to go for our first subtask here, which we have conveniently broken down. Identify 200 items to digitize. We're going to create that. That's also going to be assigned to Maya. This does have a due date. So we've got September 15th. So we're going to give that a due date. We're going to go next month, September 15th. And then we've got a little bit more information in here that's like, this doesn't show in this quick view. So we're going to save this. And let's go in and see what these things look like. So this is what the detail looks like for this item. You've got descriptions, you can create to-do lists in here, and you can add those attachments. You can also just drop the files in, or you can browse for them. So one of the things that we've got here is we have a description. So when you do the big, beautiful, robust project plan, you're going to take that project plan and the description for the task, and it's probably going to be a few lines, and it's going to go in the description, and you will have distilled down to this short and concise title, because you don't want big sentences for your titles on tasks. It doesn't show very well. So we're going to put, there's our description. We have up here the due date, and where is my thing? Time estimate. So one of the things that was put on here, because you need time estimates if you're planning to build, you're providing a bid for something, you've generally estimated how much time things are going to take. Having the time estimate, as well as being able to use the time to track, which is right next to it, gives you the opportunity to look at those things side by side and see whether or not your estimates are showing up, or whether something went significantly out of proportion for what you were expecting. It's a good opportunity to be able to pivot and also to be able to look at the history when you're bidding for the next style of job. So this one says it has 8 hours. So we're going to put in an 8-hour time estimate. And now it shows up there at the top too. And if I wanted to track my time, I could either just say, I'm starting to work on this now and hit a timer and track everything. I could manually enter how much time or how many minutes I spent in there. And you can even put the date of when you did it. Let's say you were really busy and you needed to go back and fill in the last few days. You can absolutely change the date when that came in too, in the event that you need to be able to bill for hours and days based on exactly when they happen. I know that's very tedious sometimes, and so you always hope that you aren't billing for 15 minutes here and 20 minutes here, but it does happen, and it is possible to do that by looking at these things and seeing when and how long you spent on them. And that gives us a basic task. We did have the add files, and I don't have the files that she specified, but that selection criteria document would be added right here. And so the person that was assigned this would then be able to look at this and say, okay, here's my document with the criteria. This is what I'm doing. They could then choose to break things down further for themselves and a checklist, like say, oh, you know, identify the A through F collection items, and then identify G through Z. Like maybe they needed to break it into smaller chunks for themselves, and they can absolutely do that. And we're going to give it one more and say review with Rachel. These aren't assigned to anyone, but when you get down to here, it could be like, oh, hey, I'm going to assign this to Rachel. It says I'm going to move this to in review, and it will be ready for that review. So you can also assign your items to somebody else, or let's say you had to leave and say, can you just pick this up for me? And you can assign them to your tasks. So I'm going to leave that assigned there. And we're going to go back to, this is the parent. So you've got a whole collection here where you can just click back to where you need to be in terms of a menu. You don't have to totally close out if you don't want to. So now we can see that on this parent identify, which maybe had a solid description of its own that was part of your proposal. It could go right in here. You've got one subtask that's showing here in place, and we're going to go ahead and add another subtask here. We're going to add a few of these. And that way we can go look at the board and see how things move through the process. And this one's going to go to Laura, and it's going to be due on September 20th and take 2 hours. So due date is September 20th. Too far. And to Laura.
And Nicole, once you save that, we do have a clarification question when you have a minute.
Sure. And this has 2 hours. And we will save. So you can add the same ones from here as well and do everything you need to from most screens. All right, clarification question.
So clarification question is related to the to-do list and the add attachment sections. And the specific, I think there was confusion that maybe adding the attachment to the checklist versus it being 2 different sections.
Thank you. They are 2 different sections. So you can create a checklist like we did for the previous item. So on here, we created a checklist. Adding an attachment is its own section down here at the bottom, where you can either drop files and just drag and drop from another screen and they will add, or you can add through upload, creating new documents, connections with Dropbox, and connections with OneDrive. But attachments is its own section. It is not a part of the checklist. All right. So we have 2 subtasks here now. How many did we make? We made a few. So let's stick with these 2 and see what this looks like for now. So you also have this little button right here, the little arrow that lets you look on this screen if you want to look at the list view. And you can see everything that's assigned underneath that section. And you can make edits from here as well. You can also change the priority for things. So let's say you realize that the items to digitize was just going to be a massive thing that needed its own subtasks, and it was going to be its whole own section. It's very easy to just convert it to a task and have it change. And then it would become just like identify here, which in identify, you can also convert it to a subtask. So there's very easy to change the list structure. If you accidentally, maybe you made everything tasks and went, oh no, these were supposed to nest under each other. It's okay. You can convert it to a subtask without having to start over. All of it works in here. And let's go take a look at this board view now. Now that we have some things on the board, you can see here that identify is showing and has everything is in to do. Nothing else has happened. This is just grouped by status right now. We're going to turn it on so you can show all subtasks. Now, if anything moves, so let's say we went, oh, you know what, this is actually in progress. Oops, nope, that was right. It's like, this is actually in progress. I'm going to move that to in progress. And, oh, you know, Laura was just on it, and this is already ready for review by Rachel. Very easy to just move it through and put it in different places. You can do the same thing in here, right up here in the left-hand corner. I just moved this to complete. Click the little arrow button. I also just moved it back to do because it wasn't supposed to be done yet. You can automatically put things as complete if somebody jumped the whole system, but everything is here where you can move it through your processes. From this screen, you can move it through your processes just by looking at the board, but this is that post-it view. This is the board that says, here's where everything is in the process, and I can absolutely see it. Any questions about that one so far?
While we give people a moment to think and to type, Nicole, could I ask you to show them the cool, like, add as a watcher, and then also like the comments, the adding?
Yes. So up here in the right-hand corner is this little thing with eyes. Those are watchers. So I created this, which means I'm automatically a watcher. The person who I assigned it to is automatically a watcher. So if I put somebody else on as a watcher, what that means, now it says there's 3, is that any updates to this, people assigned as watchers are going to see those updates. They will also get notification if there are any comments. So here we could say, hey, Rachel, I added you as a watcher so you can see the updates. I can also tag it to Rachel and say at Rachel. So make sure that they get notified. Let's say I wanted to ask her before I did it. I could say, hey, Rachel, do you want to be a watcher on this? I know you had some questions about this, and all of this is going to show up on the ticket. Every update you make, all the comments, everything will live within that ticket. So you have that record. So all of your conversations can happen here. And you can even just create a Zoom meeting based on this and invite people on your team and say, we got to talk about this, and create a Zoom meeting directly from here. It's probably not going to let me do it because I'm presenting, but that button does work.
To follow up on that one, there's different notification settings throughout for ClickUp that you can determine. But one of my favorites that I really appreciate is any sort of, like, if I'm included in a comment, if there's been an update on a task that I'm watching, I can get email notifications of that. I don't have to like live in ClickUp to then try and watch the updates. Like, they come to me, like I get notified, which my brain appreciates. So I have a couple questions for you, Nicole, but if you wanted to add anything else before I interrupt you further.
No, I think we're at a good point now. I see a few questions in the chat. Easy one regarding Zoom. Zoom is free to sign up for. It does not come with ClickUp, but it has a lot of integrations to a lot of different systems, whether it's Slack or ClickUp or anything like that. So Zoom is just free to sign up for, and you can use it with ClickUp. And can I request status updates via ClickUp? So you could certainly put a comment in and tag someone in and say, can I get a status update for this? Or you could mark yourself as a watcher up here with the eye, so that anytime one of these tasks changed, you would be notified via email that there was an update to it. And that would be the way you would get status updates, is either comments or watching. Access levels in the free version. Rachel, are you able to control access for your folks, or is it just everyone has access?
Yes, to the to the first of that answer. Yes, we did end up signing up for, I think, the first tier of paid because we wanted to get into time reporting, which is on the paid tier. But ClickUp offers so much on that free subscription, including, I think it's at least 4 different levels of like admin, editor, I forget the official names, but like the usual in terms of like, you can see it and create it, you can see it, create it, edit it, that kind of thing.
Awesome. Thank
Yes.
you.
Excellent question.
That's right, because when we had you sign up, I didn't have the right access to be able to make some of the changes I needed to help set up your board initially. So I had to be added to the right access level in order to help her build the boards.
Yes.
Chrissy did just drop the ClickUp pricing if you're curious about what that pricing looks like. I do think, though, that just having the free version and being able to play with that with the unlimited users and whatnot is really helpful, because then you can build it and you could also use it then to pitch getting the paid version once they can see the use for it and once people are used to the system. All right, so we've got a few items here on our board that are showing in different phases of process. And back here in our list, we can see that things have changed color as they have moved. The default is always grouped by status. I like to have all subtasks showing out so that you can see them where they are in their different areas. But you can say, do we have anything assigned to me? Nope, I don't have any tasks. Look, I get to take a break. So maybe nothing for me. Maybe I want to see what's assigned by people or what's unassigned. You notice there's a little thing here that says 0 tasks. So nothing is unassigned, which is important because you have work and no people to work on it, then that's concern. But oh, look, Maya has 2 tasks. Maya's busy. And so we're going to look at, no, don't do that. I want to click that little red button and we're going to see everything that Maya is assigned in this specific project. So you are able to see who is assigned what, how many people are assigned things. You can run reports or build dashboards that will allow you to see where the work is assigned, like in terms of like a graph that says this person has X percentage of the work and this person has this percentage of the work. And then you can kind of see how things are balancing out for your project members. And that particular graph, the one that says work by assignee and whatnot, that one's part of the free version. There are graphs and things available in a dashboard for the free version. It's just the granular time tracking and some of the more involved items are not available in the free version. So pretty much everything you need is on this one screen once you've put everything in. So we would ultimately go through each of these. We do the exact same thing here under prepare and would create tasks for all of these things. So this one wasn't broken down as far. So we'd start with, okay, there's our parent is prepare. This is the description for the task for Maya. So we'd say, using pick list to pull all items from storage or display and transport them to the distribution. Pull items using pick list. And so we take this description and then condense it down into a much shorter title for the task, build that out, assign it out, put our dates on it. Everything would just be visible at a glance. You wouldn't need to open more documents. You can open your supporting documents by having them attached. Your entire project can live in this space with whoever you give access to it. And I love this structure. Personally, this is why Rachel asked me to help her with this. I adore this structure. I like the way that these things look, and really being able to grasp and see who is assigned and when things are due and understand where things are in the process, just to be able to streamline, and also for the ease of being able to hand things off to someone and say, everything you need is here. Okay. Was there anything else, Rachel, that we wanted to go over on this board?
I think just a recap perhaps on why we chose ClickUp. I know
Sure.
we addressed that a little bit in the first webinar, but now that we have it open, you and I can have a little informal, like, this is why this works best for me kind of thing.
Sure.
So I know when I first asked you for your help, it was one of those like, I need something that's easy to use, that can fit a small business in terms of like maybe 5 people are involved, things like that. What do you recall in terms of like, I know you looked at a couple different products, you've worked with many different products. Speak to a bit of the differences and what to consider maybe when people are looking for a project management platform.
Sure. So there are a variety of free versions out there with varying limitations to what you get when you do those free versions. Top 3 free versions would probably be ClickUp, Asana, and Trello. And Asana and Trello are more well known than ClickUp, although since we started using ClickUp, I am seeing it everywhere. Like ClickUp, I'm seeing it on LinkedIn. It is absolutely gaining a foothold in comparison to some of the other ones. Asana and Trello are great collaboration tools, and they do have some of this structure to them, but they didn't have the same degree of ease, and they also didn't have some of the abilities that we aren't using but would like the potential to use. So there's something called sprints, and that's where you time box things. So let's say you needed several things done in a certain amount of time. You would create a sprint and say, this is all of our prioritized work that has to be done in this week. And you would show all of that in just that box. It doesn't take it out of the rest of your project. It just puts all of your priorities in one place. So we wanted the ability to potentially have those kind of time boxed activities, even though it hasn't been necessary yet. And ClickUp offered sprints. ClickUp offered the Kanban view where you could get your post-its. It provided the lists, having the tasks and subtasks, plus allowing you to do those checklists and whatnot was a nice addition. We wanted to be able to attach documents to things, and most of the free ones will allow you to do that, but ClickUp has a lot of integrations with things as well that you don't often see outside of paid versions for things, because API integrations are usually considered premium things. So it really provided a lot of bang for no buck. The ultimate in terms of doing program and project management in the digital sphere is to use the Atlassian suite, which is Confluence, which has, it's like your own Wikipedia, basically. It's where you build all your own pages for documentation and whatnot, and Jira, which is the standard for building the tasks and the tickets and those structures. It's a beautiful system. It has its quirks. It's also a bit more to pick up. Like, I'm pretty sure if I ran through Jira in 10 minutes, I would have a lot of question marks in comparison to running it through ClickUp. Jira is much more robust and maybe not the easiest thing for first time use, and also like the most expensive thing on the market. So we went and looked for inexpensive, ease to pick up, and had all of the, here's the things that we want, including things like time tracking. And ClickUp ended up being the one.
Yes, one of the things that I really appreciated is since the team is growing from more than just me, and I think archives and museums can relate in terms of like you're bringing on volunteers, interns sometimes, etc. I needed a place to put like, here's the repeatable processes without having to do it every time. And here's the document you should go and reference because, you know, my staff are not in my brain. They don't know where that I put that thing.
Mhm.
So it's been helpful to have a platform that prompts and supports you building repeatable processes and structures and then can share those with your staff, interns, volunteers, etc. Nicole, we do have a couple questions in the chat and the Q&A.
We do.
Let's see. A couple of them are on reports, and
Mhm.
so maybe let's go into the report section and we can do a little bit of an overview, and then we can ask the specific questions on that. How does that sound?
All right, so where did you go? This one is so new. Okay, let's go into the test dashboard. So let's talk about reports a bit. There are a ton of templates and widgets for reporting. And so this is an example of some of those. These are ones available on free, like totally on free. And so determining where your tasks are, where they are in the process, who is assigned and what percentage, and what the workflow is like. In terms of, and these are all just widgets. And so when you're adding widgets, it will give you the opportunity to go through a whole variety of things. Now, the time reporting one is not on this dashboard because this dashboard was created before the paid version, but the time reported is one of the ones that's paid version. But everything else on this dashboard at a glance, just telling you where things are in the process, is all free. As for a Gantt view specifically, we haven't tried to do the Gantt view in this yet, and I am fairly positive that would be a paid item rather than one of the free ones, but they do have a good amount of free reporting in terms of getting you nice charts to be able to use. Let's see, Kari, for mid-project status report, yes, you can filter based on due dates and people and dependencies and status and all kinds of things in here. And that would allow you to specifically get down to a particular project that you wanted to run reports for. I would say you would probably use the data out of this in order to put it into a different report that you provided to the client. I don't think you would necessarily export or send the client here to look at reports, but you would be able to get data for a project status report, like things that were on time or not, or how much was left to go.
Mm-hmm.
Reuse documents like specs. So,
sorry, Nicole, I'm not sure if everybody can actually read the question, so I'll read the full one and then you jump in. But the full question is there a place in ClickUp for putting the reuse documents like specs, etc.? And so I imagine that's for not just when I want to assign, like, here's the flow chart for this specific task. I imagine Kari's asking about like documents that you want in like a shared document, no matter the project.
yes. So you'll see down here at the bottom of this list on the left, there is a document section. I don't know what's in her document section, so I'm not going to click on it because those are Rachel's working documents. So, but there is a document repository actually within ClickUp. So you can have it there, but it also integrates with things like Dropbox. So if your document repository was in Dropbox, then you would also be able to have things in your Dropbox and then link them over to add to specific tickets. So it doesn't have to only live on the ticket. It can live in Dropbox and then be added to a ticket so that you have your document repository as well, or you can build that repository within ClickUp.
Mhm. All right, we have at least 10 more minutes, actually maybe closer to 15. So while we give people a few more minutes to, write their questions out. Another question for you, Nicole, from Sarah. Sorry if you covered this already. Uh, she had a thing she had to do. Is there a timeline feature in this, like something that will give a visual display of the tasks and their timelines?
All right, let's see. Priority breakdowns, priorities over time, high task, low task, normal task. Where is it? That, I don't think that's time tracking. I'm pretty positive that there is a status over time or that it could be made. But I'm fairly certain that date, nothing found. Or I could build one because I can make custom reports in here too. So line charts, bar charts. Okay, so within the custom data is where you would want to create your own report or chart based on the due dates. So you could use that data, like the field of due date, as an opportunity to create a report that you would track by. It's kind of the same thing I did here with the priority breakdown, where I said how many were in each one or what the progress was for things. Otherwise, spaces, demo space. So within here, if something, let's say that something is overdue. Let's change this guy. Let's say it was due on 7/15. Oh no, it's overdue. Let's see what that did. If you'll notice here, suddenly it changed the color. So now we're seeing that this is in the red. Our item is overdue. You can also just sort everything in your project, sort the entire column by due date. And so whatever is due soonest would then move to the top of the list, regardless of where it is on the list.
Yes, I was just going to suggest this view is usually the one I use the most in terms of if I'm not living within just one project and want to get a sense of like, oh, what should I focus on today? Having this ability to sort like just me tasks versus the team, being able to filter on due date versus the priority flags, all of those are helpful depending on what it is that you want to, which data point you want to prioritize. And also because I am signed up for the email notifications, I can confirm that there is a nice little overdue subject line email that you get for the tasks that you're responsible for that are overdue. We do have a couple more questions, but I want to allow you, Nicole, to finish up any thoughts you had about this before I ask you.
No, let's go ahead and go to Carrie's questions.
Okay, and we have some, that was just a thank you in the chat. Okay. So I believe the first, they're kind of related. So it's about customer management, and which for museums or archives too, this could be like the foundation that gave you the grant money, for example. So just the question essentially is there a place to put that type of customer client, grant foundation kind of info? And the example is, for example, my task includes writing a proposal. Is there a place for putting the client contact info and original project ask? And what I get a sense of is like maybe there's like a names. The question is there's like a names table or something like that?
Yeah, I'm imagining kind of like a leads tracking a customer, a CRM is basically what I'm getting out of this is, does it have a CRM component or does it integrate with a CRM of some kind, like, for example, Salesforce for nonprofits or something like that. I don't believe that ClickUp is structured at this point to be a CRM itself where you would track leads necessarily. As to whether it would integrate with another system like Salesforce, like if you put in a new lead into Salesforce and it generated a task in ClickUp that said, you need to do this and follow up on this client. We haven't explored that, so I don't really have an answer for you on that. The only thing that I would see was if you had a space that said like new client, new client potentials or project proposals, and you went from project proposal to this is now a project of its own. And then you would be able to see all of the previous proposal you had done because they were in their own board.
Mhm,
That's the only thing I see in ClickUp at this time.
mhm.
Otherwise, yeah, I don't know enough about if there's a paid integration at some point with a CRM because we haven't gone that far.
Yeah, it's definitely worth checking out the integrations section, Kari, or Carrie. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Because there are a lot. And I want to say I saw Salesforce in there as an example. But yes, if that's something, CRMs or any other type of integrations, it's worth checking out and playing with, because so far, everything that I've played with or integrated with ClickUp has been fairly straightforward and has made my life easier. So it's worth playing around. All right, we have Nicole for a few more minutes. What other sort of questions, or if there's features or functions you want to see a little bit more of that we can show you before we're done here today? We have the pronunciation,
All right,
Kari.
got it.
Okay, and you're so welcome. Good questions. While we're giving people a moment to type out their remaining questions for you, Nicole, knowing that you've got extensive also nonprofit project management on your side, and we're probably speaking with a lot of folks that it's museum and archive, but it's also nonprofit. What are some of the examples that you've either seen in practice or that you wish like your nonprofit would be like, please use this for your event planning kind of stuff? What are some of the examples where you would see this translate really well?
So when you're dealing with large scale events and activities and you have a lot of volunteers, especially if it's an annual event that is repeatable, then being able to build all of the tasks and responsibilities from that event into its own project on here, where you can give people access, you can assign them to it, they get all of the documents for the history, and you can see whether or not something has been completed or not. Like just being able to have that visibility for that massive of event, especially when things are duplicated, it's something I desperately want for one of the nonprofits that I do. We do a big gaming event and have a bunch of different departments, and it's all run by volunteers, and we're doing mostly the same things each year. But when somebody leaves and you don't have a transition from like assistant to boss in that thing, then you're like kind of flying blind. And so I would love something like this where I'd be like, here's all of the expectations and everything's available in one space, and you can see it. And so it's actually one of the things I'm pitching for that organization this year is to be like, can we do this? Because you can, one of the things that I didn't show you is you can duplicate something. So if this was massive as completed and you were going to do Rev 2 and you had some of the similar things, you can straight up hit duplicate and you can copy everything. If you wanted the same people assigned, if you wanted to copy the tasks only because you're going to have all new volunteers this year, you can do it, all of it. Everything that you need just gets copied right away. New name, everything, and you can be like, okay, I had GameStorm 2021, I'm going to copy it to GameStorm 2022, done. So yeah, and you can customize. So I don't need the assignees, but I want everything else. Maybe I don't care about the views. Maybe I don't care about the watchers because it doesn't matter anymore, but all of the core things, and then I'd be able to have it again. And that's the reason that I want to put the event in there.
Yes, this succession planning idea, like what happens if somebody goes on maternity leave or goes to another museum, like
Mhm.
having these processes built in a central spot is critical. There was also the archive feature I don't think we talked about yet, Nicole, but this may be part of the answer to Ellen's question. Ellen asks, does the initial project plan slash outline document reside in ClickUp, or does it disappear once the components are entered into the software? So maybe a couple parts here.
Yeah. To a degree, that's kind of up to you. So what we would likely do with that initial project plan is that it would live in a document repository, because chances are what we actually end up building these projects off of is the approved project plan or scope of work from the client, which means you're going to have their approvals and their notes or anything like that. So you're going to keep that document regardless, and you're going to save it in your document repository. It's the information out of it that moves itself into ClickUp that you want to make sure you've built your tasks off appropriately, and those tasks should match what is in your project plan. You won't send your client ClickUp, you'll send your client the project plan, and then from that you will build the ClickUp to run their project.
Mm-hmm. And then you can always, once you do have it built, and Nicole had mentioned this earlier, like you can save it and duplicate it. We can save it and archive it and then bring it back. So once it is in ClickUp, it can have many lives.
You are welcome, Ellen.
And then I do have another question when you're ready. Oh, go ahead and show the archive thing.
I'm going to go ahead and show the archive. So it removes it from view, but you can restore it at any time. So that means, let's say if you completed a project and it's been 6 months and you're certain all the little loose ends and everything has been wrapped up, you don't need to do it, it's not expected to repeat, you can go ahead and archive it. And now it's just going to hide. It'll be gone. And then later you could decide, oh, I think I needed that. And you could go back into your archive and pull it out, or copy it, or anything that you needed to do from it. It doesn't delete it, it just hides it so that you don't have a list a mile long on the left side of things that you don't need to access anymore. So archive just helps clean things up without erasing things.
Yes, which I know the archivists will appreciate in this room. And there's no like expiration date, like you'd never have to be afraid of it like being gone forever.
Yeah.
Yes, and then we have another question for you, Nicole. Marie Chris asks, can you import a list of tasks? For example, what if I have a list of collections that need to be processed? Can I import them as tasks? So like Jane Smith collection needs to be processed. Will Smith collection needs to be processed. Maybe they're in like a spreadsheet or a Word doc. I haven't played with that myself, Marie Chris, but I imagine there might be an import feature.
I have not tried that in ClickUp. I've done that in other things. It's always a little bit finicky when you're importing, because of making sure that things hit the right lines when you're importing. I've usually just structured things in a way that says I can this is easy for me to like copy over, and once you've got the rhythm down, it's usually not that hard. But importing that one, they have a pretty extensive FAQ and support page. Like, it's robust and beautiful, unlike a lot of other things, and they're all accessible articles. So it actually may be worth it to just search in there and see about importing tasks, because that's not something that we needed to do. So I haven't gone down that rabbit hole with ClickUp, but that's a really good question.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, I think Christy was going to help us out, and if she hasn't already, I think there was links to the pricing area for ClickUp and the helpful FAQ videos, etc., which we have definitely used, and definitely one of the more helpful supportive products in terms of like helping you use it. Oh, there's export, which is one of our next questions.
Exactly.
Nice, Excel and CSV.
Yes.
So Sarah's question, what kinds of things can you export from ClickUp, or do all reports / data stay in ClickUp only?
So you can export your space, your view. In terms of the dashboards. Let's see here. I usually just like my nice pretty dashboard so that I can screenshot them. Let's view in full screen. It's not giving me an export view on here, refresh timer. So whether or not you can export the data, I know you can export time data. But whether or not you can export things off of your dashboard, I am not sure. I haven't attempted to do that yet, but you can export your projects. And they will bring it all into those forms that we saw before.
Yes, from what I remember, it does a fairly decent job of letting you take your data with you. And we're starting to use reports now, but it's the paid function, of which I know we can do. I think it's Excel and PDF at a minimum for the kinds of timing reports we're doing.
Yeah.
And Christy, thank you for sharing all those helpful links in the chat. I know we've hit 3 o'clock here, so I want to be respectful of everybody's time, including Nicole's. So we'll finish this recording. It'll go up on YouTube. We'll send out the link as well as links to the resources that Christy's helped shared. And Nicole, just thank you again so much for playing around in ClickUp and helping us understand that a little bit better. We really appreciate your time and your expertise.
My pleasure. I'm happy to do it.
Excellent. All right, well, I'm going to let everybody go and have a wonderful rest of your days.